Disclaimer: this video doesn't have the best analysis per se. I missed a lot of details. This is mostly about my experiences and thoughts when listening to this album for the first time. Obviously, this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers ahead, so I highly recommend listening to the entire album before proceeding. Everywhere at the End of Time, possibly one of the most horrifying works of musical art that has ever existed. You may have heard of it, usually going along with pictures of liminal spaces or backrooms clips, but there's actually a reason behind it that makes them so unsettling. Electronic musician James Leyland Kirby, famously referred to as the Caretaker, wanted to have the audience experience the effect of Alzheimer's disease through music. He does this by dividing the album into 6 stages of degraded samples of old ballroom music from the 1920s and 1930s that progressively gets more distorted and distant. Now, you may be wondering, doesn't the disease have 7 stages? And the answer is yes, the disease indeed does have 7 stages. However, the first stage has no symptoms. So, stage 1 in the album is stage 2 dementia, and so on and so forth. So when I talk about stages in this video, they will be referred to as the stage represented in the album, not the disease. Apparently, according to a New York Times article, TikTok teens were listening to this album as a quote-unquote challenge. I mean, I am glad that it's getting some recognition, but it is a bit disrespectful to consider this work as a creepypasta thing rather than art. This album was delicately constructed, and it would be a bummer if anyone just did this for views on TikTok rather than actually appreciating it. See, if you don't listen to this without thinking about every single detail that this person has put in, you are basically just spending 6 hours and 30 minutes of your life just sitting in a chair. And that's no fun. And without further ado, let's get into it. Now, this really isn't the stage where you start to forget. Very few symptoms are actually visible during the stage. However, you can notice some hints. When the song Heartaches by Al Bowley is sampled, I noticed that something's a little off. It didn't go on to the next part of the song. There was no voice either. Take a listen.
I should be happy with someone new, but my heart aches for you.
It's a very different mood, isn't it? The sample only loops a specific section of the song, noticeably the most famous part of it. And it doesn't loop only like 2 to 3 times, it loops like 5 to 6 times. Now, right before I continue, Heartaches is actually going to be one of the recurring motifs found in the entire album. Now, if you're a little new to music and composition, recurring motifs are repeated ideas that show up across a piece. The rest of stage 1 is quite simply the same ballroom repetition technique, almost like if you're cozy at home, remembering the good old days.
I like my coffee how I like my sight.
But don't forget the rest of the song.
Disgusting!
My interpretation of why the music repeats on the most iconic parts. The patient can only remember some things of the song, not all of it. But it's not enough to notice that they have dementia, mainly because the removed parts aren't as iconic.
I would even say it's just...
Everything starts out fine, and it continues to be fine. Some songs may sound a little distorted. Even Heartaches almost stayed the same, despite that it's more dreamy and it started at the wrong moment. It definitely gives you that sense of feeling of falling into an ocean where everything sounds a little blurred, but enough to figure out what it is.
Now, with this Alzheimer's stage, the whole idea of forgetting things is way more present. You can clearly hear how some things are clearly removed, and everything feels like if you're spamming the deafen button on Discord. On a more serious note, the sudden stops of the melody that is trying to be present in the later half of stage 3 is a great representation of just blanks in memory. Now, maybe it's just a bit hard to realize that the melody is sometimes left out of the track and substituted with electronic static, and so this stage really gave me a shock as I realized what was happening. Here's a clip of F4 for reference. Ironically, like what I have said before, you need a lot of memory to fully understand the entire album, and it requires your knowledge of the sampled song Heartaches. A personal idea of what this is supposed to mean is that the patient is trying to remember the same memory. I've seen some modern analysis videos, but nobody pointed out that it's basically a representation of the same memory, just getting more distorted. And the title goes from "It's just a burning memory" to "What does it matter if my heart breaks?" to "And heart breaks" to "Burning despair there's ache," and so on, to "Aching cavern without lucidity." Notice how each time the title is slightly different? The lyric "It's just a burning memory" comes from the actual song by Al Bowley. Similarly, to "What does it matter how my heart breaks," it's also another lyric from the song. "And heart breaks" is a vague statement that distorts the memory a bit, all the way up to "mournful camaraderie." In my perspective, I think these titles further prove my hypothesis of how these are all the same memory, but processed through a different severity of dementia. Like, this representation of a memory felt through a song makes a whole lot of sense. They should call it headaches instead of heartaches.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the
Out of the entire album, Stage 4 had one of the most horrifying moments. There's these loud screams, which many refer to as hell sirens. There's also these crash.
Actually, that's sampled from Granada Mantravani.
How'd you get into my house?
And what you call hell sirens are actually cymbals, which is your instrument, by the way.
Aren't you supposed to be at camp? Alright, that was weird, but he was indeed very correct. The original sample sounds bright, but when it's slowed down, it sounds like you're falling into an abyss. For stage 5, I don't really know what to say about this stage. 3 minutes and 56 seconds in, this whole soup of electronic noises, there's a sudden uplift in the tone in the entire section. The music suddenly becomes graceful and hopeful, and this is a moment where I shed a tear, because this was an example of those long-term emotional memories or a face of a loved one. It's horrifying to realize that in this deep abyss of memory loss, there's just this one thing that the person is clinging onto the most. 6 minutes and 46 seconds in, you hear voices and they're all tangled up and mixed. You feel like you can know what they're saying, but you don't. 50 minutes and 14 seconds in, you can hear heartaches very clearly, but 1 second later, it drowns out. You're confused. You can't recognize anything. You can't recognize the voices, or you can barely even recognize heartaches anymore. I did some research after listening to it, and apparently, there's this moment in stage 5 where all versions of heartaches was mixed together and played very quietly.
It's the final stage of Alzheimer's. All hope is lost, all memories are lost. You can't even remember yourself. When you go to a mirror, you see a stranger looking back. You can't recognize anything. With this editing of these sound effects, I had no clue what he was truly going for. But then, I realized something. That's exactly what he was going for. His main goal in this final stage is to replicate the last stage of dementia, and I think he executed it really well. I mean, it feels less stressful compared to the previous ones, mainly because you forgot that you have dementia at all. At the very end, the patient passes away with the piece.
Actually, at the end there's this Bach piece called Last Mitch In.
Alright, that's it. I'm sending you to where you belong. This ending really made me cry, per se. It's depressing. It's emotionally a sad ending. It feels like it feels like if I have visited everywhere at the end of time. And that leads to the question, why does this music go along with liminal spaces so much? And the answer is simple. In liminal spaces, you see images that feel familiar but not so familiar to you. And the same thing goes with the album. This combination creates this eerie setting that is perfect for short films.